Hi, I'm St.Juste, and thank you for checking out my Patreon. Today I want to talk to you about architectural photography and reaching for the sky. In this video, we will be discussing visualization. That is, seeing the image before you even take out your camera. We'll also be talking about the lens that I use for shooting, proper exposure, sharper images, and editing. But before I begin, I want to tell you a little story. As I began to prepare for this video, I started reflecting on why I love architectural photography. And as I was reflecting, I thought about my father. You know, when I was growing up, my father did carpentry work, and I looked up to my father. I wanted to be like my father, and I believe that sparked my interest in and my fascination with architecture. Also, my mother used to, when we lived in New York, as a little boy, my mother would take my brothers and I downtown because she designed clothes and bags and home goods, and so she would sew and just design and make things. And she would go downtown to the fashion district, different places throughout New York City, and searching for different fabrics. And I remember my earliest time, she would take us down to downtown on the train, and we would, after we left the subway, just walking up the steps. First thing I noticed was these skyscrapers. I remember my first time seeing these big buildings, and I was like looking up. I was a little boy looking up like, wow, this is just amazing, you know. So there's so many things about buildings and about architecture that I love. You know, there is so much negativity in the world. So many are feeling discouraged, feeling hopeless. And one of the things, when I think about art, one of the things that art did for me is it gave me inspiration. It gave me something to hope for. It gave me hope. It just opened my world to new things, new ideas, to see different places around the world through, you know, the books I would read. And I would just look at these books of these photos around the world, and I would say, I want to be able to take these things, you know, I want to take these structures, I want to take pictures of people. And art in itself, whether it was me writing poetry, it just, you know, songs, it just inspired me. And I hope that that art, we can use art to just bring some hope into the world, give some inspiration, give some encouragement, and that is my hope. Today I want to share some of my architectural photography, but most important, I want you to reach for the sky. The first topic that I want to discuss is visualization, one of my favorites. Visualization. Ansel Adams, one of my favorite landscape photographers of one of the best photographers of all time. You know, I have some favorites, Ansel Adams, Gordon Parks, but Ansel Adams says, he describes visualization as the ability to see the scene you photograph and recreate in your mind the print you will produce, or the photo you will produce, the picture you will produce. Meaning, see your developed image relying on the information you receive from the scene and on your developing intentions. And the way that he defines it is the ability to anticipate a finished image before making the exposure. Visualizing the image, seeing it in your mind when you look at a scenery, before you even take out your camera, to be able to see how it's going to look on somebody's wall, how you want it to look as it framed, as it's printed. You're thinking about all these things before you even take out your camera. And when you do take out your camera, the different settings that you use, the different how you frame your shot, how you composed your picture, that is visualization. Being able to visualize, being able to see it before you even snap the shutter. The second topic I want to discuss with you is learning to see. Learning to see. Learn to see. Dorothea Lange, another one of my favorite photographers. I have so many others. Gordon Parks is my favorite, but we'll talk about that another time. But Dorothea Lange, female photographer, she took a picture called The Migrant Mother. Iconic image. One of her quotes is that she says that the camera is an instrument that teaches people how to see without a camera. Let me say it again. The camera is an instrument that teaches people how to see without a camera. You have to be able to see without your camera. Learn to look, learn to see, observe the world that's around you. You know, when we observe the world around us, you know, we will begin to attract the things that we love. You know, some people have specific styles of photography. Some people love street photography. Some people love just portraits. They may not do any architecture. And then some people love architecture, and there's so many other genres. But for architecture, through my experience, is that I would tell you, learn to see, learn to look, learn to see architecture when you drive. When you're driving, just observe around you, you know, don't crash, but just observe, you know, or even if you're a passenger, you know, looking out the window. If you're on the train, look out at the architecture. If you are walking or riding a bus, one of the things I love to do is, if I see something while I'm driving, I may not at that point in time be able to stop. I may be heading to a destination, but I will make note and look at the streets just to observe and see what street was this. Make a mental note just so that I can then see what city am I in. And I say, I'm going to come back to this place. Or sometimes I observe things on the internet and I say, oh, I remember when I first moved to this town in Stratford, I typed up different places to take pictures, you know, beautiful places. And I saw a lighthouse, the Stratford Lighthouse right there in Lordship. And I said, I'm going to just find this place. And I went and looked. Met a gentleman over there. You know, I just asked him. He was working on some property in the area, and you know, and right actually where the lighthouse is. And I just asked him, is it okay for me to shoot? And he just loved the fact that I asked him. You know, I went and I captured this shot of this beautiful structure, this lighthouse. Amazing lighthouse in Stratford, Connecticut, one of the beautiful lighthouses out here. Another thing to look at is shapes. Look at shapes. There are shapes in architecture. There are shapes in buildings. There are shapes. Take a look at the shapes when you're observing, when you're looking. Learn to look. Look at symmetry. I remember taking this the art history class when I was doing my undergrad. I didn't know about these. I would see these things and would love it. This architecture and art. But I didn't understand what symmetry was. I heard the word, but I didn't know how it applied to art. And when I understood it, you know, just made me start. When I started doing photography, I started seeing how these things came together. It was really it was about art, you know. Look at the structures of the buildings, the designs. You know, the architects, when they are designing their buildings, they are artists. When they're putting the blueprint together, these are artists. So when you look at the buildings, think about what the architect had in mind, you know, and look at his artwork. Look at the way he crafts the pieces. He may not have been the one that put the nail, you know, hammer and nail, but you know, he was the designer, you know. And just look at how it was designed, like a person making clothes. Another topic I want to discuss is sharpness. How to get sharper images. To get sharper images, one of the things you want to look at is the f-stop, or the aperture. Your f-stop should be at 7, 8 or more in order to get sharp images. Because if your f-stop is at a 2 or 3, those numbers are for when you taking images of portraits, so that you can blur out the background, you know, those bokeh images, because you're focusing on that subject. And you also depends on the style you want, or you as an artist, or on your job as a commercial photographer, what you want to capture for portraits. But for generally for architect work, you know, if you're a realtor and you're taking pictures of a building or a house, a home, for your real estate agent, you know, you want to make sure that those numbers are 7 or 8. You want to have and that helps you to get just sharper images, so that even things in the background, maybe there's some cars or whatever it is, your attention is, the subject is the building, but you know there are times when you capturing things that are around the building. You want to also have a balanced exposure. You want your exposure to be more balanced. You want to make sure the ISO controls light sensitivity. So you want to make sure you have a proper exposure from your ISO. Just shutter speed can also affect your exposure. So another thing I've been using is filters. I've been using filters and I love it, you know. And it helps with the skies, like especially if you're shooting during bright sunlight, you know, it's a bright day. The filters really help to allow you to see the sky. If you have clouds, it just allows you to see the clouds, or you know, just makes things. It's kind of like a shades. It's like having a shades for your lens. So it just makes things a lot better, especially if you're shooting in harsh sunlight. I recommend for most photography, you know, early mornings or late afternoons, closer to the evenings. Those are great times to get more interesting light for your subjects in your photography. It helps you to get less harsh light. And you want to make sure that you don't have any bags holding you down, because that affects you. You want to be able to have your foot on the ground. You want to make sure that you don't have anything on your arm shaking you, like a bag can sometimes prevent you from having your hands steady. Just make sure that you have your feet leveled. If possible, like if you're doing commercial work, you may want to have a tripod with you. That can help. That's for some more intricate things that you want to do with your architectural photography. When shooting architectural photography, you want a wide angle lens. From my experiences, that's what has helped my photography in terms of doing architecture Post-editing work or editing. You definitely want to make sure that you get everything in camera as much as you can. But sometimes you may have an image that is too dark or underexposed or too bright, also known as being overexposed. And so you might want to make sure it's good advice to have some editing software so you can do some post-editing work. I use Captured One, and I used to use Lightroom in the past. I still have Lightroom. I still use it from time to time. Photoshop is another one, good investment, which I do use Photoshop for a lot of my digital artwork and other work that I do with my photos. But generally I'm on Captured One. And there's this feature in Captured One for called rotation. You can rotate your image. So like, let's say if you take a picture and you look at the building and it looks like that, or it's slanted a bit, you can use the rotation to turn that image left or right. You can flip it also, but just so that it has a good balance. These are things that you want to pay attention to. When you're shooting, it's a great idea to just compose the image and or to frame it so you have less work to do in post. There's a more technical section when you editing your photos called Keystone. It's more intricate, but it also is a way to give you good symmetry in your image, or to just to get it the way that you want. And so the last thing I want to say, last but definitely not least, is to go out and reach for the sky. Have some fun. Practice, practice, practice. You know, you're like a piano player. You know, when they tell when a kid wants to learn how to play the piano, he's just starting out, he's an amateur, he doesn't know too much about playing the piano, but what does this teacher say? That you got to practice your scales, practice your chords. So it's the same thing with photography. You know, you want to practice, you want to have fun. Go out there and have fun. Go out into the city, go out into the town and go and shoot. It is the best way to learn, when you go out there and shoot. And most of all, you know, when you're going out somewhere, bring your camera with you. Just bring your camera with you. Or make a little trip out there and practice, practice, practice. And again, most of all, reach for the sky. Reach for the sky. I'm St.Juste. Until next time, remember, the world needs you. So keep creating and let your art speak.